What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense actors brings that same energy to a talk show argument that spirals completely out of control? It only took 30 seconds for a friendly conversation to explode into the most shocking meltdown The View has ever witnessed. Subscribe now for daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. Last night on The View, Christian Bale sat down for what was supposed to be a light-hearted discussion about his latest role, but instead the entire appearance devolved into one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. Christian walked out to enthusiastic applause, looking relaxed in dark jeans and a casual button-down shirt. He greeted all the hosts with handshakes and smiles, settling into his seat with what seemed like genuine comfort. The audience was excited, clearly thrilled to have such a major Hollywood star on the show. The interview started perfectly fine. The hosts asked about his preparation for his latest character, his method acting techniques, and his thoughts on the film industry. Christian answered with his usual thoughtful intensity, sharing stories about his process that had everyone leaning in with interest. He talked about the physical transformation he underwent for the role, the research he did, the people he met to understand the character better. It was engaging and insightful, exactly what everyone expected from an actor known for his dedication to the craft. Then, Behar decided to shift the conversation to politics, specifically asking Christian about his views on certain social issues that have been dominating the news. She started by mentioning that Christian had been vocal in the past about various causes, and she wanted to know where he stood on some current debates happening in America. Christian's expression changed immediately. His relaxed posture stiffened, and you could see a guardedness come over his face. "Joy, I came here to talk about the film. I'd rather not get into politics right now." Joy laughed. But it was that laugh she does when she's not actually going to let something go. The kind that signals she's about to dig in deeper. "Oh, come on, Christian. You're a public figure. You have a platform that millions of people would kill for. Don't you think you have a responsibility to speak out about important issues? Don't you think silence is a choice in itself?" There was a noticeable pause. The studio audience seemed to collectively hold their breath. Christian looked at Joy with those intense eyes that have made him so compelling on screen, the same eyes that have transformed into Batman's glare and Patrick Bateman's emptiness. "I think my responsibility is to my craft. I'm an actor, not a politician. And frankly, I think actors should stay in their lane. We're not elected officials. We're not policy experts. We're entertainers." The other hosts exchanged quick glances. Whoopi's eyebrows went up slightly. This wasn't going the direction anyone expected. Sunny Hostin looked like she wanted to say something, her mouth opening, then closing again. But Joy was already responding, leaning forward in her chair with renewed energy. "Stay in their lane?" Joy repeated, her eyebrows raised high, her voice taking on that prosecutorial tone she's famous for. "That's an interesting take, especially coming from someone who's worked on films with heavy political messages, films about corruption, about class warfare, about American society. Don't you think art and politics are inherently connected? Don't you think by choosing those projects, you're already making political statements?" Christian shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable with where this was heading. His body language became more defensive, shoulders tensing. Art can explore political themes without the artist having to become a spokesperson for every cause under the sun. There's a difference between examining issues through storytelling and standing on a soapbox telling people what to think. A massive difference that people seem to forget. But when you choose to make those films, aren't you making a statement? Joy pressed, leaning forward even more, her hands gesturing for emphasis. You can't hide behind just being an actor when you're actively participating in politically charged projects. When you take on roles that critique capitalism or expose government corruption, you're taking a stance whether you admit it or not. "I'm not hiding behind anything," Christian said, his voice taking on a sharper edge, his accent becoming more pronounced as his frustration grew. "I'm being honest. I'm being clear about my boundaries. I think there's too much expectation for actors to have opinions on everything. We're not experts on foreign policy. We're not economists. We're not qualified to tell people how to think or vote or live their lives. Why is that so hard to understand? Joy shook her head. A smile on her face that didn't age spruce it present. Reach her eyes. So you're saying actors should just shut up and act? That's pretty convenient when you've built your career on the backs of films that challenge the status quo. Christian's jaw tightened visibly. That's not what I said. Don't twist my words. What I'm saying is that I prefer to let my work speak for itself, rather than use interviews as a platform for political grandstanding. Political grandstanding? Joy's voice went up a notch. Is that what you think this is? I'm asking you legitimate questions about your views on issues that affect millions of people. You're trying to trap me into saying something controversial. Christian fired back. I can see what you're doing, Joy. You want me to make some statement that you can then pick apart or use to create headlines. I'm not interested in playing that game. The temperature in the studio was rising fast. Whoopi tried to jump in, but Joy kept going, clearly not ready to let this go. I'm not trying to trap anyone, Joy said, her voice getting sharper. I'm trying to have an actual conversation about real issues. But apparently you're too worried about your image to have an honest discussion. My image? Christian let out a short, bitter laugh. You think this is about my image? This is about refusing to be manipulated into a soundbite that serves your agenda, not mine. The audience was completely silent now, watching this unfold with a mixture of shock and fascination. Sarah Haynes looked deeply uncomfortable, and Alyssa Farah Griffin seemed frozen, unsure whether to intervene. My agenda? Joy's face was flushing red now. What agenda? Having people who have privilege and platforms use them for good? That's not an agenda. That's basic decency. There you go with the privilege lecture, Christian said, his voice dripping with frustration. I worked my ass off to get where I am. I started acting as a child. I've dedicated my entire life to this craft. Don't sit there and tell me about privilege like you know anything about my journey. Joy sat back, arms crossed. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize working hard meant you were exempt from having to care about anything beyond your own career. My mistake. That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. Christian's voice was getting louder. Stop putting words in my mouth. I care about plenty of things. What I don't care about is being lectured by talk show hosts who think they have all the moral answers. The studio went dead quiet. That line had crossed into territory that nobody expected. Joy's mouth fell open, genuinely shocked. Excuse me? Joy said, her voice dangerously quiet. You did not just come onto my show and insult me like that. I'm not insulting you, Christian said, though his tone suggested otherwise. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy. You're sitting here judging me for not wanting to talk about politics, while you use your platform every single day to push your own political views. How is that any different? It's different because I'm a political commentator, Joy shot back immediately. That's literally my job. You're an actor who benefits from the freedoms and protections that political engagement provides. But you don't want to participate in the process. You just want to reap the benefits. Benefits? Christian's voice rose sharply. What benefits? The benefit of being constantly asked invasive questions about my personal beliefs? The benefit of having everything I say scrutinized and twisted? The benefit of knowing that no matter what I say, half the country will hate me for it? Those benefits? Joy leaned forward, her voice intense. Yes, those benefits. Because that's what comes with being a public figure. You don't get to pick and choose. You don't get to use your fame when it suits you and hide behind, I'm just an actor when it doesn't. Watch me, Christian said flatly. I absolutely can choose what I talk about and what I don't. That's my right. You may not like it, but it's not up to you. The other hosts were now actively trying to calm things down. Whoopi raised her hands, trying to get everyone's attention. Okay, let's all just take a breath here. This is getting a little heated. But Joy wasn't backing down. Her face was flushed now, her voice rising with conviction and frustration. You know what I think, Christian? I think you're a coward. I think you have opinions, strong opinions probably, but you're too scared to share them because you're worried about losing fans or movie roles or endorsement deals. And you're hiding behind this stay in your lane nonsense to avoid taking any real stand on anything that matters. That's what I really think. The word coward hung in the air like a grenade that had just been thrown into the middle of the stage. Several audience members audibly gasped. Christian's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: shock, disbelief, anger, and something that looked almost like hurt, like genuine pain. When he spoke, his voice was ice cold, controlled in a way that was somehow more frightening than yelling. Did you just call me a coward? Joy didn't flinch. Yes, I did. Because that's what it looks like from where I'm sitting. You want all the glory of being a celebrated actor, but none of the responsibility that comes with that platform. Christian stood up abruptly, causing gasps throughout the audience. His movement was so sudden that even Joy looked startled. You don't know a damn thing about me. You don't know what I do in my private life. You don't know what causes I support or what organizations I work with. Just because I don't broadcast every charitable action or political opinion on television doesn't mean I'm not engaged. Joy stood up too, matching his energy. Then why not talk about it? Why not use this moment to actually make a difference? Why waste the opportunity? Because it's none of your business. Christian's voice boomed through the shock. Studio. My private life is private. My beliefs are mine. I don't owe you or anyone else a performance of my political consciousness. I'm not your trained monkey here to dance on command. Nobody's treating you like a trained monkey, Joy said, though her voice was less certain now. I'm asking you to be a responsible member of society, to use your influence for something beyond yourself. And I'm telling you that you don't get to define what responsibility looks like for me, Christian fired back. You don't get to stand there and judge me for not living up to your standards when you know nothing about what I do outside of this spotlight. The production crew was clearly in panic mode. You could see people rushing around in the background, producers probably screaming in the control room about how to handle this situation. But Christian and Joy were too locked into their confrontation to notice or care. I know what I see, Joy said, her voice shaking with emotion. I see someone who's been given every opportunity, every advantage, and who refuses to acknowledge that with that comes responsibility, that comes obligation. Obligation? Christian laughed, but it was harsh and angry. The only obligation I have is to my family and my craft. Everything else is optional. And what I choose to do with my time and energy is my choice, not yours. That's exactly the problem, Joy said, almost yelling now. People like you, who have everything, think you don't owe society anything. Think you can just exist in your bubble and ignore what's happening in the world. People like me? Christian's eyes narrowed dangerously. What does that mean exactly? People who work hard? People who've dedicated their lives to their art? Or are you making this about something else entirely? Joy seemed to realize she'd stepped into murky territory. I'm talking about wealthy celebrities who refuse to engage with social issues. That's what I mean. No, I don't think that is. What you mean? Christian said, his voice sharp as a knife. I think you're making assumptions about me based on stereotypes and prejudices. You've decided who I am without knowing a damn thing about me. Whoopi was now standing too, trying desperately to mediate. Okay, everyone needs to calm down. This has gotten way out of hand. But neither Christian nor Joy was listening. They were completely focused on each other. Two strong personalities colliding with explosive force. The only assumption I'm making, Joy said, her voice trembling with anger, is that someone with your platform should care enough about the world to speak up, to take a stand, to be brave enough to say what they believe. Brave? Christian's voice was dripping with contempt. You want to talk about bravery? You sit here in your safe little studio, surrounded by people who agree with you, saying whatever you want without consequence, and you have the nerve to lecture me about bravery? That's rich. Without consequence? Joy looked genuinely offended. I get death threats. I get harassed. I get attacked constantly for my views. Don't you dare suggest I'm playing it safe. Then you should understand, Christian said. His voice still raised, but with a note of something else underneath. Maybe exhaustion or frustration. You should understand why someone might not want to subject themselves to that. Why someone might choose to keep their beliefs private to protect themselves and their family. That's the difference between us, Joy said, and there was something almost sad in her voice now. I'm willing to take those hits because I believe in something bigger than myself. You're just protecting your comfort. Christian stared at her for a long moment, his breathing heavy, his jaw clenched tight. You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about comfort. This is about boundaries. This is about the right to privacy. This is about not allowing people like you to bully me into performing for your approval. Bully you? Joy's voice went up again. I'm not bullying anyone. I'm holding you accountable. No, Christian said firmly, reaching down to remove his microphone. You're trying to shame me into saying what you want me to say, and I won't do it. I refuse. The sound of the microphone being unclipped echoed through the studio. The audience gasped again, louder this time. This was really happening. Christian Bale was about to walk off the view. Joy's face went through a series of emotions, anger, hurt, and something that might have been regret. So, you're just going to leave? You're going to prove my point by running away? I'm not running away, Christian said, his voice cold and controlled now. I'm choosing not to participate in this circus anymore. There's a difference. A huge difference. The circus? Joy looked genuinely hurt now. This is my show. This is my career. And you're calling it a circus? When you ambush guests with political interrogations they specifically asked not to have, yeah, that's a circus, Christian said, standing at the edge of the stage now. I told you I didn't want to discuss politics. You pushed anyway. This is on you, Joy. Joy's eyes were watering now. Whether from anger or genuine emotion was hard to tell. I pushed because I expected more from you. I expected you to be more than just another celebrity who takes and takes but never gives back. Christian turned back to face her one last time, and there was something in his expression that was hard to read. Anger still, yes, but also disappointment. You don't know what I give back. You don't know anything about my life. And the fact that you think you do, the fact that you think you have the right to judge me based on a 30-minute appearance on your show, says everything about you and nothing about me. That's not fair, Joy said, her voice breaking slightly. Fair? Christian let out a short, bitter laugh. You want to talk about fair? Nothing about this has been fair. You invited me here under false pretenses. You said we'd talk about the film. Instead, you tried to trap me into a political debate I explicitly said I didn't want to have. And when I refused to play along, you called me a coward on national television. Don't talk to me about fair. The other hosts were all standing now, forming a sort of barrier, though it was unclear whether they were trying to keep Christian from leaving or protect Joy from more verbal attacks. The audience was completely silent, every eye glued to the stage. I shouldn't have called you a coward, Joy said quietly, and for a moment it seemed like she might apologize. But I stand by everything else I said. You do have a responsibility. We all do. Christian shook his head slowly. The only responsibility I have right now is to remove myself from this hostile environment. You made this personal, Joy. You attacked my character because I wouldn't give you what you wanted. That's not journalism. That's not even good television. That's just mean. Mean? Joy's voice rose again. I'm trying to make the world a better place. I'm trying to use my platform to push for change. If that makes me mean, then so be it. No, Christian said, his voice final and decisive. What makes you mean is your inability to accept that not everyone wants to engage the way you do. What makes you mean is calling someone a coward for having boundaries. What makes you mean is bullying someone who explicitly asked not to discuss certain topics. That's what makes you mean, Joy. With that, Christian turned and walked toward the exit. His stride was purposeful, not rushed, not panicked. He was leaving on his own terms, with his dignity intact, at least from his perspective. Joy called after him, her voice desperate now. "Christian, don't do this. Don't walk away. Let's finish this conversation like adults." He stopped at the doorway, his hand on the frame, and looked back one final time. The lighting caught his face in a way that made the moment almost cinematic, which was fitting given who he was. Adults respect each other's boundaries. Adults listen when someone says no. Adults don't resort to name-calling when they don't get their way. Maybe think about that. And then he was gone, pushing through the door and disappearing backstage. The door swung shut with a heavy thud that seemed to echo through the stunned silence of the studio. The cameras caught Joy standing there, looking shaken, her arms wrapped around herself, like she was trying to hold herself together. Whoopi moved closer to Joy, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Let's go to commercial," she said to the camera, her voice steady but tired. But before they could cut away, Joy spoke one more time, her voice barely above a whisper, but picked up by her microphone nonetheless. "I was just doing my job." The words hung in the air as the show finally cut to commercial, ending one of the most dramatic confrontations in The View's long history. What started as a simple question about social responsibility had exploded into a full-scale war of words that exposed deep divisions in how public figures should engage with political and social issues. Christian felt ambushed, attacked for maintaining personal boundaries and refusing to use his platform in the way Joy thought he should. From his perspective, he came to promote his work and was instead subjected to a political interrogation that crossed professional lines. The fact that he explicitly asked not to discuss politics and Joy pushed anyway felt like a violation of basic respect. Joy felt that Christian was shirking his responsibility as someone with massive influence and privilege. From her perspective, remaining silent on important issues when you have the power to make a difference is itself a political choice, and not a noble one. She saw his refusal to engage as cowardice, masked as principle. The moment when Joy called him a coward was the point of no return. That personal attack transformed what might have been a heated but recoverable debate into something that couldn't be walked back. It made the conversation about character rather than ideas, and Christian wasn't going to sit there and defend his character to someone he felt had no right to judge it. Christian's point about privacy and boundaries resonated with a certain truth. Public figures are human beings who have the right to keep aspects of their lives private. The expectation that celebrity status means surrendering all personal boundaries is something many famous people struggle with. His frustration came from a genuine place, even if his delivery was harsh. Joy's point about responsibility and privilege also had validity. People with platforms do have an opportunity to influence public discourse and advocate for positive change. The question of whether that opportunity becomes an obligation is debatable, but her frustration with wealthy celebrities who benefit from society's structures while refusing to engage with society's problems is understandable. The image of Christian walking through that door, his final words about what makes someone an adult still echoing in the studio, became an instant moment in television history. It represented not just the end of an interview, but a collision between two different philosophies about what it means to be a public figure in America today. Joy remained on stage, visibly shaken by what had just happened. Her usual confidence was replaced by something more vulnerable, more uncertain. She had pushed for what she believed was right, but the cost was a confrontation that left everyone involved looking wounded. The audience didn't know how to react. Some people looked sympathetic to Joy. Others seemed to understand Christian's position. Most just looked shocked that things had escalated so quickly and so dramatically. They came for light entertainment and got a masterclass in how disagreements can spiral out of control when both parties refuse to back down. The other hosts stood in an awkward cluster, clearly processing what they'd just witnessed. They had tried to intervene, tried to dial down the temperature. But once Christian and Joy locked into that confrontation, There was no stopping it. Sometimes, when two strong personalities collide over deeply held beliefs, the only outcome is explosion. The door through which Christian had exited remained closed, final and unforgiving. Behind it, he was probably already removing his microphone pack completely, maybe talking to his publicist, definitely ready to leave the building. In the studio, Joy was trying to compose herself for the remainder of the show, but everyone knew that everything else that day would be an afterthought. What happened on The View that morning wasn't just a celebrity walk-off. It was a cultural moment that exposed the tensions around fame, responsibility, privacy, and political engagement. It showed how quickly respect can break down when assumptions and judgments enter the conversation. It demonstrated that even the most controlled, professional actors can lose their cool when they feel attacked and disrespected. Christian Bale had been kicked off The View, though technically he kicked himself off by refusing to continue the conversation. Either way, the result was the same: a dramatic exit that would be replayed and discussed for a long time. A confrontation that neither he nor Joy would soon forget. And a reminder that live television is unpredictable, precisely because human emotions are impossible to script.